Ready for something amazing? We're diving deep into Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama today.
A classic sci-fi novel about to hit the big screen. And we've got your collection of sources to unpack it all.
Alien encounters, giant spaceships, the whole shebang. It's about the thrill of discovery.
Oh, but it's more than just another sci-fi flick. Rama really stirred things up back in '73.
Really?
Yeah, people were debating humanity's place in the universe way back then. That's how ahead of its time this book was.
I can see why it caught Denis Villeneuve's eye right after Dune.
Right. Talk about a director who knows atmosphere.
Exactly. But picture this.
Yeah.
A massive spaceship, cylindrical, just cruising through our solar system.
Not stopping, not saying hello, just existing.
And the sources, they don't skimp on the details, 50 kilometers long.
8 kilometers in diameter. Imagine that thing in the sky.
Makes you feel kind of small, huh?
And here's the real mind-bender. No aliens on board. At least not that anyone ever finds.
It's like finding a ghost ship, but on a cosmic scale.
That's what makes it so eerie, right?
Yeah.
It's not your typical aliens invade story. It's the silence that gets to you.
One source even called it, get this, arrival on steroids. And knowing Villeneuve,
He'll nail that feeling for sure.
but even back in the 70s, Clarke was praised for his accuracy, scientifically.
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't just spaceships and lasers. He really thought it through.
It wasn't just made-up tech. He imagined things like artificial gravity.
Which is wild because it makes the ship itself feel like a character.
Right, like it has its own presence, its own weight.
And, Clarke wasn't just writing sci-fi. He was practically predicting the future.
Is that right?
He wrote about communication satellites long before they were even a thing.
No way.
Way back in 1945, he had this paper about a geostationary network.
Wow, so the guy was basically a visionary.
Combine that with how massive and intricate Rama is, no wonder it became an instant classic.
He made the tech feel real, like, yeah, we can't do that yet, but maybe someday.
That's the beauty of it.
But the ending, that's where things get interesting. The sources mention mixed reactions.
Yeah, people either love it or hate it. It's divisive.
One article even said some readers felt let down, while others thought it was brilliant.
It all comes down to expectations, I think.
Without giving anything away, what kind of questions do you think Clarke is tackling with that choice?
The big ones. Are we alone in the universe? How would humanity react if we knew there was something else out there?
Right. And not just hostile aliens, but something that's just passing by.
Exactly. It forces you to consider maybe we're the aliens in this story,
Yeah.
stumbling onto something we can't even comprehend.
It's been 50 years, and we're still talking about this book. Why do you think it keeps resonating?
Because those questions, they never get old. It's timeless. That fear, that fascination with the unknown, and our place in this gigantic universe, it makes you think.
Especially with Villeneuve directing, someone known for Arrival and Dune.
Oh, he's going to knock it out of the park. This movie could be huge.
Bigger than just another alien movie.
It could make us re-examine ourselves, our whole place in the cosmos.
Okay, so we've got this giant spaceship just cruising through. But what's it like inside?
That's where Clarke's genius really shines through. He doesn't just create a spaceship. He creates a whole world inside it. A self-contained ecosystem.
An entire world? Like what?
With its own weird rules, its own inhabitants. There's even this thing he calls a cylindrical sea. Imagine that.
A cylindrical sea. I can't even picture it.
It's this massive body of water like an ocean, but wrapped around the inside of the cylinder, held in place by centrifugal force.
So it's like the water is stuck to the walls, but on a massive scale.
Precisely. Clarke was playing with physics on a level most of us can't even fathom.
My mind is officially blown. What else did he dream up?
He imagined these creatures called biots, basically biological robots.
Biots. So not aliens exactly, but...
Right. They're more like their creations. Some of them clean and repair the ship. Others tend to these agricultural areas he came up with. It's like he seamlessly blended nature and technology centuries before we even had the words for it.
So by focusing on the biotes instead of the aliens themselves,
Yeah.
what do you think he was going for?
It's brilliant, really. He could explore artificial life without actually having to define what those aliens look like or how they think.
It's like he's saying, look at what they can build.
Right. And that might tell you more than any alien ever could.
It's like, we think we're hot stuff with our smartphones, but then you see this.
Exactly. It makes you realize how limited our understanding of technology might actually be.
Gives me chills just thinking about it. But it also makes me think about the people sent to explore it all. It's not as simple as just sending astronauts up there, right?
Oh, absolutely not. That's where Clarke's social commentary really starts to shine through.
How so?
Well, he drops this alien encounter right into the middle of very human problems.
So it's not just about humans versus aliens, it's about...
Humans versus humans,
Hmm.
with this giant, mysterious spaceship as the backdrop.
That's brilliant.
And that's what makes it feel so real. Because even with the unknown looming out there, we don't magically overcome our own nature.
Our drama follows us into space, huh?
You got it. Our fears, our ambitions, even the crew of the ship sent to investigate Rama, they're not just astronauts. They represent a cross-section of humanity. They've all got their own backgrounds, their own viewpoints.
The sources mentioned a diverse crew. Tell me more about that.
You've got Commander Norton, he's your by-the-book astronaut, but then you've got Dr. Laura Ernst, who's a brilliant exobiologist.
Wait, did you say exobiologist? Is that like a real thing?
It is. They study the possibility of life beyond Earth.
So that would be their job if we ever did encounter aliens, right?
Exactly. They're the ones looking for signs of life on other planets, figuring out how life might exist in totally different environments.
Mm-hmm.
Clarke really did his homework.
So he's thinking about the specialist we'd actually need. That's cool. He's really thinking ahead. Who else is on this crew?
Well, you've got Boris Rodrigo representing the Rama Committee.
The what now?
It's an international group formed to oversee everything about Rama, making sure the exploration is done responsibly, that everyone shares what they find.
Okay, so you've got scientists raring to go, a cautious commander, and then the bureaucrat.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
And of course, Clarke uses that to create some serious tension. Because even with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, people are still people.
We can't help but get in our own way, huh?
That's what he's saying. Sure, aliens are interesting and all, but even when we should be working together, look at what happens.
Okay, that's kind of unsettling when you put it like that.
That's Clarke for you. Always making you think.
So how does it all shake out? Do they find a way to work together, or does it all go sideways?
Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say Clarke keeps it real. No easy answers here.
Of course not. This is serious sci-fi. We're talking about the big stuff.
Exactly. He shows how those human flaws, that complexity, it's all there front and center. And it makes you wonder, if it were us, how would we react?
Because it's not just about exploring a spaceship, it's about exploring ourselves.
That's exactly it. And that's why Rendezvous with Rama has resonated for so long.
It's not just an escape. It's holding up a mirror to us.
It's thought-provoking. Makes you think about who we are, how we treat each other, how we relate to the world around us even. And, Clarke wrote this during a time of massive change on Earth. The 1970s were a wild ride, right?
Socially, politically, everything was shifting.
Exactly. And it's impossible to ignore that context, right? The Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam, the Cold War. All of it was casting a shadow on the future.
So even though Rama is set in space, it's still grounded in the reality of its time.
Absolutely. One article I read pointed out that Clarke was actually critical of this idea that space exploration would lead to world peace.
Really? Most sci-fi back then was pretty optimistic, wasn't it?
It was. But Clarke, he saw things differently. He suggested that space exploration might even make those tensions worse.
Because of that whole us versus them mentality.
Exactly. He shows us that even with the fate of humanity potentially at stake, people are still going to be driven by their own agendas, their fears, their desires.
It's a pretty sobering thought, isn't it? That we might be our own worst enemy, even when facing the unknown.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, if we ever do encounter another civilization, will we rise to the occasion? Or will our own flaws be our undoing?
Those are questions we're still grappling with today. But, for all the tension and uncertainty, Clarke also manages to weave in these moments of, humanity, even hope.
Absolutely. He reminds us that even in the face of the unknown, even when our own flaws are on full display, there's still that capacity for connection, for wonder, for something more.
It's the big question, right? What would we do? But this time, it's not like those alien invasion movies.
No, it's different.
It's like Clarke took that idea and flipped it on its head.
But we've talked big ideas. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
How does Clarke actually handle the exploration of Rama? What's it like for these characters inside this alien world?
Now that's where things get really interesting. Remember how we were talking about Rama being this huge cylindrical world, its own ecosystem, totally unique?
Yeah, it's a whole other level.
Navigating that environment, it's as wild and challenging as you'd expect. It's not just about landing on a planet and planting a flag,
No, this is different. It's more complicated. Oh, way more. It's the sheer size, sure, but it's how Clarke describes it. The inside of Rama is this constantly changing landscape with these weird gravitational pulls, bizarre life forms.
It's like he invented new laws of physics just for this place.
It's that feeling of disorientation, you know, you're not on Earth anymore.
The sources mentioned a giant staircase. It circles the entire interior.
That's one of the most iconic images from the book. Imagine this, a staircase so massive that each step is like a city block winding its way up the inside of Rama.
I can't even picture that.
It's how the humans travel between the levels.
Yeah.
And it gives them this incredible perspective on the scale of it all, you know?
It'd be like if the Empire State Building was just one step on a staircase that goes on forever. But how do you even build something like that?
And that's the genius of Clarke. He doesn't really explain it. He gives you just enough detail to get your imagination going, but then he leaves the rest up to you.
I can see how that would be frustrating for some readers. Some people want all the technical details, you know?
Right. But for me, that's what makes Rendezvous with Rama so special. It embraces the unknown. It reminds us that some wonders we may never fully understand.
It's like he's saying the universe is full of mysteries, and that's okay. We don't have to have all the answers.
Exactly. And speaking of mysteries,
Yeah.
what about those biots we were talking about earlier?
The biological robots.
Yeah.
Do they cause any trouble for our intrepid explorers?
Oh, well, let's just say some of them aren't too happy about having company.
Oh no, here we go. Things are about to get a little dicey.
Clarke is a master of suspense. You're not going to get big, loud alien battles here. Instead, he creates this atmosphere of unease, this creeping realization that you are not alone.
Okay, now I gotta ask. What do these biots look like? Are we talking like scary monsters? Or something weirder?
That's the best part. He gives you these vivid descriptions, but he also leaves a lot to the imagination.
How so?
He might tell you a biot has 3 legs and a smooth metallic shell, but he won't necessarily tell you what its face looks like or how it moves. It's up to you to fill in those blanks.
He lets the reader kind of co-create the creepiness.
Exactly, and that's what makes the book so effective. It's those things we don't know, the things we imagine, that really get under our skin.
It's like that H.P. Lovecraft quote. What was it? The oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown.
Exactly. And it's so relevant now. Look at what's happening in the world. So much uncertainty.
Right. Climate change, political instability. Feels like we're living in a sci-fi novel sometimes.
And Clarke, he understood that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't just leave us in that state of fear. He contrasts this vast alien world with the very human drama unfolding inside it.
Which is what makes it so relatable.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure things out, even in the face of the unknown.
So how does he manage that? Balancing the epic scale of this encounter with the personal stories of these characters.
That's where Clarke's real skill as a writer shines. He can go from describing these massive, awe-inspiring settings to these quiet, intimate moments, often in the same chapter.
You mentioned before that these characters are from such different backgrounds. How do their individual stories play out against this backdrop?
Well, for one thing, being in Rama, it forces them to confront their own mortality.
Whoa. That's a lot to process when you're millions of miles from home, surrounded by alien technology.
It is. It makes them question everything. What's the point of it all? What do we even know?
It's one thing to contemplate your place in the universe from your couch. It's another to have this artifact make your whole civilization feel utterly insignificant.
Right. And that has a huge impact on them. They start to question their priorities, their beliefs, their whole sense of self.
You were talking about Commander Norton earlier, the astronaut who's also a devout Christian.
Right.
How does he reconcile his faith with the possibility of life beyond Earth?
That's the thing about Clarke. He doesn't shy away from those tough questions. We see Norton struggle with his doubts, questioning everything he thought he knew. And ultimately, he has to come to his own conclusions.
It's a fascinating conflict, isn't it? On one hand, he's facing something that challenges his deeply held beliefs. On the other, he's witnessing this incredible, awe-inspiring thing firsthand.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that Clarke doesn't take sides. He doesn't say one viewpoint is right or wrong. He just presents the conflict.
So he's exploring that tension between science and religion.
Yes. 2 things that are often portrayed as being at odds with each other. But here, they're both present, both valid. And that makes it all the more powerful, I think.
It's a much more nuanced and relatable take than we usually get. But it's not all intellectual debate and existential crises, right? There's got to be some good old-fashioned human drama, too.
Oh, absolutely. This is a pressure cooker, after all. You got these people stuck together in this extraordinary situation. Things are bound to get messy.
It's like one of those reality shows where they stick a bunch of strangers on an island and see what happens.
Right, except the stakes are a little higher this time. And Clarke uses that to his advantage. He really digs into those interpersonal relationships.
Give me an example.
Well, you've got rivalries, jealousies, misunderstandings, all those things that happen when you throw a bunch of people together in a confined space, even without an alien spaceship thrown in.
So it's a reminder that no matter how far we venture out into the cosmos, we bring our baggage with us.
Always. And it's those human moments, those flaws and vulnerabilities that make the story so compelling.
Because even though the setting is out of this world, the characters are still, well, human.
Exactly. We see ourselves in their struggles, their triumphs, even their failures. But it's not all doom and gloom. Clarke also shows us how this shared experience, this incredible encounter, can bring people together.
There's hope yet.
There's always hope. These characters, they might drive each other crazy, but they also rely on each other, they support each other, and ultimately they come together in ways they never thought possible.
It's like by facing this incredible, awe-inspiring alien creation, humanity remembers its own humanity.
That's beautifully put. It's a reminder that even when we're confronted with something as vast and unknowable as Rama, even when our own flaws are on full display, there's still that potential for connection, for understanding, for something more.
It's giving me chills just thinking about it. But, with all this talk about the characters and the exploration, we haven't even touched on the ending of the book yet. And from what I've read, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, every article I read, someone's got an opinion on this ending. Love it, hate it. Why is it so controversial?
It's like I expect a certain something from these stories, especially sci-fi.
Give us the answers.
Right. Aliens show up, explain themselves, maybe there's a battle, good guys win, roll credits.
But Clarke doesn't do that.
Nope. And some readers, they feel cheated. They want those explanations, that resolution. So what are we left with then? If there's no big reveal, what's the point?
See, that's the thing. It's up to you to decide. But Clarke does something very deliberate with Rama. It's not about conquest.
What do you mean most alien stories? That's the whole point, right? They're here to invade, take over.
Exactly. But Rama, it's just passing through. No interest in us.
We're not even on the menu. Like that line from Contact, if it's just us, seems like an awful waste of space.
Right. But Clarke flips that on its head. What if we're the insignificant ones?
The ants under a cosmic magnifying glass.
Makes you reevaluate everything, doesn't it? Our problems, our accomplishments. They seem pretty small when you imagine something as vast and indifferent as Rama just drifting by.
Makes you think about what really matters. If our whole civilization could be wiped out just like that, what then?
Big questions, man. The kind that have always haunted humanity.
Yeah, and Clarke doesn't give us easy answers, but there are moments of hope, right? I mean, it can't all be bleak.
Of course not. Even though Rama is this giant, impersonal thing, the humans, they still find connection with each other.
So even in the face of this massive, unknowable thing,
They find meaning in their shared experience. It's a reminder that those things, our capacity for wonder, our curiosity, our ability to connect, those are what matter, no matter what the universe throws at us.
And those themes, they really resonate today, don't they? One source I read even said Rama feels more relevant now than ever.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. We're living in a time of constant change, uncertainty, just like the characters in the book. Climate change, political upheaval, all this rapid technological advancement. It's almost like we are staring down an unknown future, just like them.
And here's Clarke, back in the 70s, laying out those anxieties with this amazing story. It's prescient, almost.
He was ahead of his time, for sure. He understood that the big questions, they aren't just about technology or space exploration. They're about us, who we are, what we value, how we handle a world that's constantly shifting under our feet.
It's amazing to me how much he packed into this one book. The sense of wonder, the philosophical questions, the human drama, that ending. No wonder Rendezvous with Rama has become such a classic. It's more than just a sci-fi story.
It's an experience. And with Villeneuve adapting it for the big screen, I think a whole new generation is about to have their minds blown. It's going to start some serious conversations.
Which is probably exactly what Clarke would have wanted.
Oh, I think so. To challenge assumptions, to get people thinking, to make us look up at the stars and ask, what if?
What if indeed? Well, to our listeners out there, getting ready to see the story come to life on screen, what's the one thing you hope they take away from our deep dive today?
Don't expect your typical alien movie. Be ready to think, be ready to feel, and don't expect all the answers neatly tied up with a bow.
Because sometimes the best stories are the ones that leave you with more questions than answers, and maybe
Yeah.
even inspire you to look at the world, at ourselves, a little differently.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's all the time we have for today, but we'll be back next week with another deep dive. Until then, keep exploring.